Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. So our panelists are already lined up, so let's convene the summit. And before we begin, I would like to introduce our guests today from Austin, Texas, Amy O'Donnell, Director of Communications at the Texas Alliance for Life. Straight from D.C., Yuval David, a filmmaker and activist. And here in our Tel Aviv studios, plural, Chaya Lev, activist and influencer. Thank you all very much for joining us. So before we dive into the conversation, our topic for today, the long-standing debate, it's crunch time. Should Roe versus Wade be overturned? Let's take a closer look.
In 1969, 25-year-old Norma McCorvey, under the pseudonym Jane Roe, challenged the criminal abortion laws in Texas. The state traditionally forbade abortion as unconstitutional, except in cases where the mother's life was in danger. The victory of Roe versus Wade in 1973 established constitutional protection for abortion across the country. However, a recent report by Politico suggests this right may be reversed. The leaked document has sent shockwaves throughout America, dividing states along the lines of pro-choice and pro-life. Some coming to claim victory, others protesting the threats to their liberty. Abortion has divided societies for decades, but has the fate of the constitutional right to abortion already been sealed? With 26 states likely to make abortion illegal, and some 36 million women likely to lose access to abortion entirely, what would overturning Roe versus Wade mean for women across the country?
So let's get to it. Should Roe versus Wade be overturned? Ladies and gentlemen, you know the rules. You each get 30 seconds to lay out your initial stance on the matter, and then we pick up the debate right after. So Yuval, take the lead.
Here's the thing. This is a message especially to the men who are making decisions. It's not about when life begins. It's not about whether a fetus is a human being or not. That entire argument is a distraction. It's a subjective and unwinnable argument that's beyond the point. It's not about if a fertilized egg or a fetus, or if we're talking about a baby, a toddler, or an adult. Nobody has the right to use your body against your will, even if it's to save their life or the life of another person. That is the argument. You cannot be forced to donate blood, bone marrow, your organs, even though thousands of people die every single year on waiting lists. Medical professionals can't harvest your organs after your death without your explicit written permission. So denying women the right to abortion means that women have less bodily autonomy.
Yuval, we'll stop right there, and we'll continue the debate right after. But for the time being, Amy, what's your take?
We at Texas Alliance for Life believe that Roe should be overturned. We recognize that the unborn child is a baby beginning at conception, and as such deserves protection. We also recognize that abortion is not health care. The body within a woman's body is not that woman's body. Abortion not only takes the life of the unborn child, it hurts rather than helps women. I know numerous men and women who've experienced abortion, and all have expressed remorse at the decision. Additionally, we partner with pregnancy help centers across the state who offer abortion recovery programs for those who are post-abortive and people come broken and find healing.
Yes. Amy, we will stop right here because Chaya, the podium is yours. And again, we continue the conversation in a short minute.
Hi, thank you. I love this subject so much because what I usually see is people that have opinions about a woman's body that aren't the woman. It's usually white older men sitting in a room deciding what a woman should do, and it's usually women that aren't the one that's pregnant making the decisions. At the end of the day, if it's not your body, I am pro choice, because if it's my body, that's my choice, right? If I go with my doctor and I'm there with my partner, that is my choice. It's not up to that person or that person to decide for me.
Right.
It's my body, my choice.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin the debate. I will get in trouble with Chaya Kier, the head of the English channel here, but I would like to start our conversation by quoting the German philosopher Hegel. Yes, I'm sorry for getting so philosophical. He's saying that genuine tragedies are not the the conflicts between right and wrong, but rather the conflicts between two rights. And my question to you is, maybe it's a mistake to make it such a clear-cut dichotomy. It's all or nothing. It's this or that. No middle ground in this debate. Chaya.
That's absolutely right, because you feel like one person's on this side, we shouldn't do it, one person's on this side, but there's no one in the center talking about the issue at hand, talking about the lives that were lost. I'm Jewish. We do abortions. We believe in the life of the mother and the child, but we also understand that the fetus from the time of conception is different than a fetus at 9 months. So it's not a one-sided coin. There's a situation where you're there with your physicians, and it should be up to the people involved, not the person down the street who will not take care of that baby, not someone who's at home, who's a politician, who's a man who will not deliver a baby. It needs to be left up to the woman. That's her body.
Well, we have Amy here, who is not an old white man presenting the pro-life camp. So your reaction to this statement? Yeah.
And then when I say when I
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Amy. Go ahead. Hi, Amy. Nice to meet you.
Please interact. Feel free to interact.
You have a lovely smile, by the way.
By the way, Amy, I used to live in Texas, so I'm from California, but I used to live in Texas, so I know all about the Texas stance as a red state
That's
on
funny
abortion.
because all of my exes live in Texas.
Oh, so it's a Texas show. I'm the only one without a connection to Texas. I need to find one ASAP.
I love that. Yuval. Hi, Yuval. Nice to meet you.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, it is so good to be with you guys today. When we look at abortion, we have to remember that abortion is about the unborn child. It's a body within a woman's body that is not that woman's body. And we recognize that science shows that body begins at conception and continues to move through stages of development until birth. And so we have a responsibility, our organization and pro-lifers, to protect that unborn baby. And so when we come at this, we recognize that life begins at that stage and deserves protections beginning at that stage.
And
one of the problems, though, with what you're saying,
what about when the baby gets here, though, Amy? What about
we in Texas?
What do you do? What do you do for the baby when they get here? Because I lived in Texas, and I know about the adoption situation there, and I know about the hardships in Texas. And you know, Texas is one of the better states, but what do you do? Do you take responsibility also for not only that baby, that fetus, but for that child that will be here, and that child that's across the board going into poverty or going because the parent didn't want it? So what do you do beside that child and the fetus? Because everybody has they're honed in on a fetus. What do you do after the fetus is born?
So we talk about a right to life issue, right? That a fetus has a right to a life, but then what do we do about that life after that child is born?
Right.
What if that child is born?
That question
what about incest?
A lot.
What about incest?
Right. We get asked that question a lot. So one question at a time. I want to address what Texas is doing for not only mothers before the birth of the child, but also the children after they're born. Texas is ready for this moment. Our organization promoted the Human Life Protection Act, which will completely ban abortions in our state, beginning at conception, when and if Roe is in fact overturned in that final judgment. But we're ready to take care of women and babies. We have prepared for this moment. Our legislature has budgeted $100 million for the biennium, which is a 25% increase from the last legislative cycle, towards the Alternatives to Abortion program. Those monies go to pregnancy help centers, pregnancy resource centers across the state that walk with women facing unplanned pregnancies and men before birth and after birth for up to 3 years, providing tangible means such as diapers, wipes, formula, as well as education classes, and they can point them to state services that can help them with anything else they may need. We also have our Medicaid program. Medicaid pays for half the births in our state, and it takes care of the mother up to 6 months after the baby is born. And
Yuval is raising a very solid point here. Yes,
birth
please.
Control?
Yuval.
What about condoms or birth control? I mean, are those not allowed either? What about unplanned
we also have our
pregnancy?
Texas Healthy Women's Program that is allotted $352 million, and that does cover women's sexual reproduction needs as far as contraceptives, birth control, also mammograms, cervical screenings, and whatnot. And all of these services are available to low-income women. Medicaid is available to women twice the poverty level.
So I hear what you're saying, and you're providing so many services, which truly is amazing. And especially in our country, in the United States, when there are so many people who don't have the same access or don't have the same abilities to medical care as maybe those who are wealthier or in wealthier areas.
Absolutely.
But one of the points is, as a man, I am staying mostly silent here because it is a woman's right to choose. It is a woman's right to do what she does with her body. And that's my point earlier. If we're denying women the right to abortion, it means that women have less bodily autonomy than a corpse. When you can say that when you die, you might want to donate your organs. But if you say, I don't want to donate my organs, then nobody's able to harvest your organs. Why are we making decisions upon what women can do with something that's happening inside their own bodies?
Again, the body within the woman's body is not that woman's body. It is a distinct being with unique DNA, unique fingerprints. It is within the woman's body, but it is 100% its own person.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if I may chime in, even though I'm just enjoying every second of your debate, let's try and envision a post-Roe world, okay? If the rule indeed is being overturned, the punitive measures here, obviously the regulations will vary from state to state, but the options here in terms of punishment, quote unquote, are either economical, meaning lawsuits, people being exposed to lawsuits, or criminal, meaning felonies. And I will ask you a tough question here. And also another element here, perhaps the key one, are you going after the doctor or the patient? So felony or a lawsuit, doctor or patient? Please, Chaya.
But this is really interesting, and maybe please excuse my ignorance on the matter, because once again, I do live in Israel, where abortions are legal if needed. So a little change of vibe, but. Isn't it each state? Like, so basically, if you're in Texas and basically removing Roe versus Wade, it leaves each state up to it. So I'm originally from California. So we're a blue state. We will absolutely provide abortion. So let's say someone gets pregnant in Texas. What that's going to make is that person can either go to California and get an abortion, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. But what if that person is a young woman with no money? Like, I understand what she was saying earlier about providing Medicaid and Medicare, but isn't that keeping someone on the system? Aren't you providing these things? Like, wouldn't you want that person not to have a baby than to have them depend on the system? It's this circle, and especially being a black woman, that's really hard because our voices, our bodies, for so long, we've been told what to do. This, for me, is a very, very, not touchy subject, but it's one that says, you are not giving me body autonomy. It's giving me a very Jim Crow vibe, like you and I'm not saying that it's no control. So yes, you can have an abortion in California, but what if I don't have money to go there? And I know there are companies that are raising money so women could fly, but to me that's a shame, because at the end of the day, if you are the one that's pregnant, you should be able to make that decision. It shouldn't be your neighbor down the street or Jim who's a man. Let me tell him to get a vasectomy. Would he like that? I mean, think about that.
You make a really good point.
Every man, as far as I'm concerned, every man should get a vasectomy, right? I think every man should have a vasectomy. But think about that. It almost is creepy that someone is so concerned about my house, my castle, my body.
Right.
Ask
Chaya,
yourself
Amy,
why.
Yuval, we will have to make a stop right here, but we will continue this extremely lively debate in a few minutes. Out for a quick break, back with so much more. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Still with us, our marvelous panelists, Yuval David, Chaya Lev, and Amy O'Donnell. We're staying on topic, but we will seek to broaden or deepen our discussion, as the fear or the worry is that it will not end in abortion, but rather slip to other rights. And our question is, are U.S. constitutional rights now at risk? Let's take a closer look.
Since the draft opinion on Roe versus Wade was leaked, many Democrats are calling for fiercer protection for women's rights. If Roe versus Wade is overturned, what prevents federal states from taking further matters into their own hands? Could other moral standards now face more scrutiny? Are we at risk of a legal earthquake, a jurisprudential tsunami sweeping away at other precedents too? Justice Sonia begged a significant question.
Will this institution survive the stench that this creates?
The fight over Roe versus Wade has been going on for decades. A blockbuster moment for the courts that many have been anticipating and dreading for years. A sweeping victory for the conservative legal movement, and on the other hand, a liberal and devastating defeat. But a devolution of power always comes with ambiguity. So, are we opening up a gateway for other liberties to be taken away? Are constitutional rights in America at risk?
So, gentlemen and ladies, we stopped our conversation right on this topic before the break, but same rules, 30 seconds each, and then we converse. So, Yuval, we stopped you right before the break. Take the lead.
Absolutely. I mean, when we're talking about people's rights, the my body, my choice, as an LGBTQ activist, I also understand that reproductive movements and the LGBTQ movements are inseparable. We're working for the right to live our lives with dignity and the right to choose how we use our bodies without government intrusion. So since we have a Texas panelist here, Whole Woman's Health versus Hellerstadt is a United States Supreme Court case that challenged the Texas House Bill 2, which targeted the regulation of abortion providers. What happens to the providers? What happens to the doctors who help people who are in need, especially if they are marginalized communities? If the Supreme Court upholds this HB2, it's going to drastically restrict the ability of LGBTQ people to control our reproductive health and our sexual lives as well.
Right. Chaya, what's your take?
Well, I first of all, I want to thank you guys for having me here, because I am not like an analyst at any step of the way.
Don't undermine yourself. You're terrific.
I have to agree with Yuval. When I see a situation like this challenge, I have to also think, what's next? What else are we going to take away? What you're going to come for women's body? You're going to come for gay marriages? You're going to come? I mean, next thing we know, black and white people will go back to the loving situation where we can't be together. Like those things. I'm not only looking at the body. I'm looking at the whole situation. Right. This is step one. Right. You take away Roe v. Wade. Right. Just let it all go.
Right. So, Amy, what do you say? What do you answer to these concerns?
The Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health case is about abortion and whether states can protect unborn babies before viability from abortion. While we don't know what the final judgment will reflect, we do know from the draft leak what Justice Alito said regarding other constitutional rights. He said, "We emphasize that our decision concerns the constitutional right to abortion and no other right," Alito writes. "Nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. Additionally, if Roe is overturned, the power returns to the states to legislate abortion. Voters elect their elected officials, their legislators, who then go into the legislative bodies and write abortion laws that represent the majority of the people in those states. So if Roe is in fact overturned, abortion does not become illegal in our country. And it just returns the power to the states."
But dear panelist, talking to that point exactly, we need to take a look at some of the statistics surrounding this debate. In a recent survey, 61% of Americans said they are in some way, shape, or form in favor of legalizing abortion, where 35% said that it should be illegal, and only 19% said abortion should be legal in all situations. But there is a gap here between what appears to be public sentiment and the way it is being carried out on let it be the state level, the Supreme Court, etc. So try and mend this gap for us.
Well, yeah, you're making a valid point. You're talking about this gap. Now, one of the problems is whenever there's a legal decision made by the Supreme Court, it can be reversed. I think it's time for us to amend the Constitution, to put things into the Constitution that provide people the rights and protections that they need and deserve. Women's rights to do what they will with their body, or if it's not given to them, that should be in the Constitution. Same-sex marriage, the right for people to identify as whoever and however they are. There are so many things that need to be protected. There are even The word woman, I think, is only used once in the Constitution. Then let's talk about people of color. There are so many things that need to be put into the Constitution so we can put it up to a vote. Let the people vote.
But Yuval, maybe because abortion comes like in a bundle with this series of other issues, maybe this is why the fight over public discourse, quote unquote, is on the losing side to an extent. Do you get what I'm trying to say here?
Absolutely. Our country continues to become more partisan, where people are voting and sticking to their party, even changing their own opinions. And that's something that's very wrong within our political system, and why these topics keep coming up again and again and again. Where now even Republicans who formerly believed in abortion rights and in a woman's right to choose, or in same-sex marriage, are now afraid to even say so because they're afraid to go against the Republican Party.
And our president used to be pro-life, now leaning pro-choice. There are countless legislators across various states and levels who have changed their mind on it. But regardless, we recognize that the power to legislate does need to return to the states. I want to get back to something that was spoken about earlier regarding minorities. And that is that 70% of abortions in Texas are performed on women of color. 30% of the abortions performed are on Black women, who make up 13% of our population. The reality is that Planned Parenthood was founded by a eugenicist, Margaret Sanger, and Planned Parenthood facilities were intentionally placed in minority communities. Now, when it comes to protecting minority women, minority babies, I can speak for Texas. We have programs in place to do that. When it comes back to the Supreme Court, now getting back to that, it is very rare for the Supreme Court to overturn any precedent. It's called stare decisis. That precedent is typically set. In the rare cases that it has been overturned, the decision is made that it was made wrongfully at the beginning and it needs to be made right again. I, for one, am grateful that our Supreme Court is looking at this case as they have critical other cases in the past and asking themselves, did former justices get this wrong? Can we make it right? Can we return?
You know, I love the way you're saying
I just want to chime in
because
Yuval,
let me just say
I really want to chime in quickly. Go ahead.
Sure. Many people in Texas already face significant barriers to accessing health services, such as poverty, unreliable transportation, inability to take time off from work, immigration status, bias from healthcare providers. So I really appreciate hearing what is happening in Texas to right the wrongs. Denying access to abortion care often will exacerbate existing disparities when an individual seeks abortion services but is denied. LGBTQ people in Texas often talk about the challenges that they have within specific healthcare because of the religious belief of the provider. So right now, when we talk about these laws, most of these laws are based on what? They're based on religious belief. Yes, our country, the United States, protects freedom of religion, but it does not protect people's rights to use religion to take away other people's freedoms and rights. And
we're nearing the end of the discussion. So, Chaya, final remarks. Yes.
I just want to say I want to just jump on the irony of protecting Black babies, but not protecting Black bodies, because we all know, right, that Black bodies don't have the same protection as Black babies. So I just wanted to add that, just onto the edge of protecting Black babies over protecting Black bodies. Okay, that's a whole other conversation. I would love to come back and talk about that with you.
And you be sure that you will. Be sure that you will. We ran out of time, but definitely not out of passion. Yuval David, Amy O'Donnell, Chaya Lev, I cannot thank you enough for having this debate in such an intellectual and polite
with all
manner.
These amazing women, so thank you.
We will definitely have you back on the show. Be sure of that. Thank you so much for this fascinating debate.